Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 211. Your sword has no heart. Alaric didn't reject her offer. All right, he nodded his head. Hearing this, the elven princess stood up and poured tea for him. When do you plan to go back? She asked. Alaric watched her pour tea on his teacup as he responded. Once my father recovers, we will go back home. If we are gone for too long, our people will feel uneasy. After she had filled his teacup, Alaric thanked her. Amen. Ivana hummed in response as she took her seat. What do you think of my Greenwood kingdom? She suddenly asked before taking a light sip of her tea. Her eyes darted around as if she was hiding something from him. Alaric failed to notice this since he was surprised by the taste of the tea. Your kingdom is situated in a very scenic location. Sometimes I even wish that I could live in such a beautiful place. His voice trailed off and ended with a sigh. Ivana put down her teacup and stared deeply at him. There are times when I mistake you for an old man. You speak like you are reflecting on the vicissitudes of your life. Alaric's lips curved upward upon hearing her words. Is that so? You might be right. You can stay here for a while if you want. Neo, who was listening on the sidelines, did a double take when he heard those words. He sighed and stared at the young human with a hint of resentment. He knew that the elven princess had already fallen in love. She hadn't realized it yet, but Neo was certain that she had feelings for Alaric. Meanwhile, Alaric had also sensed her unusual feelings, but he didn't know how to react to it, so he pretended like he was unaware. He held some good feelings for her, but he was afraid of the repercussions it would bring once their relationship was exposed to the world. House Silversword had already gained some strength, but it was just a small household in the grand scheme of things. An elf marrying a human happened once in the past, and the ending wasn't good for both parties. It was a tragedy. Alaric didn't want this to happen to him and Ivana. With a forced smile, Alaric replied, Maybe another time. I see. All right. Ivana was a bit disappointed, but she didn't show it to her face. Their conversation continued after that, but there was already a hint of awkwardness. After another half an hour, Alaric excused himself. Before taking his leave, he expressed his gratitude to Neo. He's gone, Neo muttered as he watched Alaric disappear into the forest. Elder Neo, I don't understand what is happening to me. Why does it feel unusually painful? Uttered Ivana in a quivering voice as she clutched her chest. Neo took a deep breath and sighed while shaking his head. Do you like him? Ivana was stunned by the sudden question. She was about to say no, but she found herself unable to utter those words. It was then that she realized that she had already fallen in love with Alaric. I like him. I see. I understand now. Alaric felt that he had lost something precious as he walked further from Neo's treehouse. He couldn't stop himself from thinking about Ivana. He decided to polish his dual sword technique in an attempt to get her out of his mind, but he couldn't maintain his focus, and he kept on making mistakes. What happened? Your sword lacks the decisiveness it had when you fought with the goblins. A pleasant, but cold voice suddenly drifted into his ears. Alaric was stunned. He looked up and saw an elven woman dressed in black leather armor. It was Rosalie, the Grand Elder of the Greenwood Kingdom and Ivana's Grand Aunt. Grand Elder, I didn't know you were here. I apologize for disturbing you. Alaric lowered his head. This elf was a generation older than the Elven King, Garandel, so he didn't dare disrespect her. Rosalie jumped down from the tree and landed in front of him with a whoosh. Alaric Silversword, your sword has no heart. What is weighing on your mind? Rosalie calmly stared at the young man. It wasn't long before she had last seen him, so she was surprised to see the sudden change in his swordsmanship. She had a good impression of this young man, so she wanted to help him clear his doubts. Alaric hesitated for a moment before he asked, Grand Elder, If it was you, would you be willing to take on the entire world for the sake of someone precious? He heard that this elven woman had lived for centuries, so he wanted to know her opinion. Perhaps he might even gain some valuable life advice from her. Rosalie was taken aback, and she seemed to have discovered the reason for his sword's indecisiveness. She pondered deeply before she answered. I would rather risk it all than regret it for the rest of my life. When she uttered these words, she recalled the face of someone she had long forgotten, and it evoked a feeling of guilt and sadness. You would not want to live with that regret, she added, her voice echoing with intense emotion. Hearing this, Alaric recalled the scenes he had witnessed in his past life. The death of his loved ones, the death of his comrades, and the fragmentation of the empire. He didn't want to witness those things again. You are right, Grand Elder. Thank you for your reminder. Now I know what to do. Alaric bowed deeply at her. Her words had awakened him. He had almost done something that would make him regret it. Just the thought of it made him feel scared. Tomorrow, I will face her feelings. He made a decision. Amen. I am glad to be of help. Rosalie nodded and said, Now show me if you have truly overcome this hurdle. Alaric smiled faintly and unsheathed his sword. Chapter 212. The Realm Above Transcendence. Alaric brandished the frigid dragon sword, causing petals of ice to fall. It was a simple sword slash, yet it carried immense power that surpassed the realm of elite knights. Rosalie didn't expect him to release such formidable power without imbuing his mana into the sword. Whoosh! Alaric's attack even left a fissure of ice on the ground. Impressive swordsmanship, Rosalie praised. He only showed one move, but as an expert, she noticed the intricate details behind his sword strikes. The angle, the precision, and the force were perfectly balanced to deliver that slash. Alaric sheathed his sword and bowed to her in gratitude. Thank you for your teachings, Grand Elder. Rosalie waved her hand. I have cleared your doubts. If you still have more questions, you can find me there. She pointed at a certain tree about 50 meters from them. My treehouse is on top of that tree. Alaric squinted his eyes and followed the direction she was pointing. There is indeed a treehouse. She is really a master of stealth. Even her treehouse is camouflaged perfectly with its surroundings. Rosalie didn't linger and left with a whoosh. Alaric resumed his sword training to familiarize himself with his short sword. Due to his SSS-Rank Swordsmanship trait, he managed to master the frigid dragon sword in just less than half an hour. Others would have taken days or even weeks before they could properly wield their weapons. But to Alaric, it was just a matter of minutes. After completing his sword training, he bowed in the direction of Rosalie's house before he left. On the second day after the battle with the goblin colony, Lucas was discharged from the clinic. Alaric came early to pick him up. Smith Heinrich and Jared Paxley were also there to check his condition. My lord, congratulations on your discharge. Smith and Jared cupped their fists at Lucas. My lord. Alaric smiled at his father. Lucas calmly walked out of the clinic and replied, The healers said that I can go out now, but I still need 5 more days to fully recover. Also, I am not allowed to do any physical activity since my internal organs have not healed. I understand. I will ask someone to prepare nutritious meals for you to hasten your recovery. Also, I have something to give you, my lord. Alaric took out the mana pearl that he got from Ivana as a gift. Lucas raised his eyebrows upon hearing this. He knew that Alaric received this mana pearl from the elven princess as a gift. But that is your. Alaric shook his head. You need it more than me, my lord. If he could use the mana pearl, he would have used it for himself, but unfortunately, he could no longer absorb mana using conventional means. Since he had gotten the science screen, he had never succeeded in absorbing mana from natural resources. He did get the mana gathering trait, but he could only gather mana during mana training and in limited amounts too. Lucas stared deeply at his son as he took the mana pearl. Thank you, my son. With this mana pearl and the beast soul crystal of that winged goblin monarch, I would have a higher chance of advancing to the next realm. Jared and Smith gasped in shock at his words. Lucas was already at the peak among the transcendent knights. If he made another advancement, he would reach a level that only a handful in the Empire has ever achieved, the realm of mythical knights. A mythical knight was someone who had transcended humanity. They could live for over 2 centuries, and there were even some who had survived 3 centuries. Aside from their long lifespan, they also possessed unimaginable powers. Their mana is already dense enough to allow them to fly. Due to their near-godly abilities, people respectfully call them venerable. Congratulations in advance, my lord. Congratulations, my lord. Jared and Smith showered him with early congratulations. A mythical knight was someone that they could only look up to. Even the imperial family had to be careful when speaking to an expert at that level. They could already imagine the turmoil it would cause once Lucas stepped into that fabled realm. Perhaps the entire empire would be turned upside down. This strengthened their resolve to follow Lucas and House Silversword. Everyone, please protect me while I absorb the energy inside the Mana Pearl and the Beast Soul Crystal, Lucas requested as he cupped his fists. He felt that this was the perfect place to advance. He trusted the elves' integrity, and there was also Galliner and Warwick who would hold things together in case something goes wrong. Please be at ease, my lord. We will ensure your safety during your advancement. We will not allow anyone to harm you, Smith Heinrich remarked with a serious look. The warriors of my house Paxley will protect you with our lives, Jared declared. Lucas smiled faintly. Then I will be in your care. Lucas and Alaric went somewhere more quiet. Meanwhile, Jared and Smith summoned their warriors to guard Lucas' advancement. This should be a good place. The weather is perfect too, Lucas muttered as he embraced the morning sun. He then looked at Alaric and nodded. I will begin. All right. You must be careful, Dad. You must not be hasty, Alaric reminded him. Failing to advance could cause severe consequences, and Lucas might experience the same thing that William had gone through. Lucas understood his concern. Do not worry. I am well prepared for this moment, he reassured his son. He took out the Mana Pearl and the Beast Soul Crystal of the Winged Goblin Monarch. The energy produced by these 2 items was so intense that if they were absorbed incorrectly, it would cause one's body to explode. Lucas sat cross-legged and made himself more comfortable before he began with the absorption process. To increase his focus, he closed his eyes. Alaric silently watched this scene. Good luck, Dad. Chapter 213, Mythical Knight. By the time the human warriors had arrived at the location, a strange phenomenon appeared. Due to the large amount of mana congregating around Lucas, it had become visible even to ordinary people. The shapeless and colorless mana created a blue hue in the form of a tornado, twisting vigorously as Lucas absorbed everything like a black hole. When a blue tornado hits, a mythical knight is born. Now I understand what this quote means. Smith was awestruck by what he was witnessing. What a magnificent view! Jared watched the scene unfold with wide eyes. Meanwhile, the human warriors were similarly stunned. They had never seen this kind of phenomenon before. Lord Lucas is advancing to the realm of mythical knights, a knowledgeable warrior exclaimed in surprise. His words caused a collective gasp of shock. A new venerable has arrived. The Venerable of the North. Venerable Lucas of the North. Everyone chanted with excited faces. The North was always treated as a barren countryside, and it had never produced a venerable throughout history. However, things were about to change with Lucas' advancement. At this moment, the elves had finally noticed the strange phenomenon, and they rushed to check the situation. The first ones to arrive were the Transcendents and the 3-ringed Beast Soul Masters. Among them was the Elven King himself, Garandel Greenwood. He stared at the man who was at the center of this phenomenon with a look of disbelief. Lucas is advancing to the realm of mythical knights. A figure suddenly appeared next to him and exclaimed, Your Majesty, Lord Lucas is. It was Sunset who hurried over when she sensed the commotion. A few more elven experts gathered around him, and they all expressed their shock upon learning the situation. With a mythical knight as our ally, we do not have to fear those old, undying monsters anymore. Upon thinking about this, Garandel issued a series of commands. Protect Lord Lucas. Inform our elven warriors to secure the perimeter, and make sure that no wild beast or monster would disturb his advancement." "Yes, your majesty," the elven warriors replied in unison. This was a big matter. Some elves were worried that they would be oppressed by the humans, but some of them also thought that it was a blessing to have a powerful human as an ally. A few hours passed by in the blink of an eye. Lucas had already absorbed all the energy inside the mana pearl, but he still hadn't achieved a breakthrough. This time, he started absorbing the energy contained inside the beast soul crystal of the winged goblin monarch. Some monsters and wild beasts were attracted by the commotion, but they were quickly eliminated by the elven and human warriors. 3 hours later, Lucas had already absorbed half of the energy inside the beast soul crystal. "I hit a bottleneck, but this is not enough to stop me from advancing," Lucas thought when he felt a strong resistance during his breakthrough. The absorption process became more difficult, and it felt like something was blocking the mana from entering his body. "I must break this barrier to advance." He pushed himself to the limits, causing his body to shake from the huge influx of energy that was flowing into his body. His eyes sprang open, revealing his bloodshot eyes. He felt a heart-gripping pain, but he gritted his teeth and endured it all. In the next moment, the barrier that was preventing the energy from entering his body was finally broken. He had successfully stepped into the realm of mythical knights. Lucas didn't stop absorbing the energy from the beast soul crystal. He took in every last drop of energy to stabilize his advancement. After he had absorbed the last drop of energy, the beast soul crystal disintegrated and turned into dust. Lucas swept his gaze over the crowd, making everyone feel uneasy. His eyes momentarily stopped at Alaric. "I have succeeded. Thank you for ensuring my safety, everyone." Lucas cupped his fists at the gathered crowd to express his gratitude. There was a moment of silence for a brief moment. Clap, clap, clap. Alaric clapped his hands, breaking the silence. Everyone followed suit, and they all gave Lucas a round of applause. "Congratulations on your advancement, my lord." Alaric smiled at his father. Lucas' breakthrough was a pleasant surprise for him. This would give House Silversword a protective barrier in the coming fight for the throne. His power would also deter the people who had bad intentions toward their family. "Congratulations on your advancement, Venerable Lucas." "We greet the Venerable." Everyone lowered their heads, including the Elven King. Garandel didn't dare use his authority to undermine Lucas. His Greenwood Kingdom wasn't powerful enough to offend a Venerable. Lucas waved his hand. "There is no need to be formal. I have been told by my son that we will become allies soon. How about we finalize this alliance and seal the agreement?" He turned his gaze to the Elven King as he said those words. Garandel's eyes brightened upon hearing this. "As you wish, Venerable One." He nodded in response. The Elven King invited Lucas to his treehouse to seal the agreement. Meanwhile, the crowd dispersed and they relayed the situation to those who didn't spectate the event. As the crowd began to disperse, Alaric noticed Ivana leaving together with Neo. "Ivana, wait!" he called out to her. Some were surprised when they heard someone intimately call the elven princess name, but when they realized that it was Alaric, they pretended like they didn't hear anything. Heck, who would dare stop the son of a mythical knight from flirting with someone? Ivana yelped when she heard his familiar voice. She stopped in her tracks and slowly turned around. Alaric! After she had learned that she liked him, Ivana could no longer stare at his eyes. Alaric stood before her and said with a serious expression, "Ivana, I need to speak with you." The elven princess felt inexplicably nervous, but she still nodded in response. "All right, follow me." Chapter 214. From now on, you are my woman. Ivana brought Alaric to her treehouse, which was located near the river. When looking from her window, one could see the beauty of the river and the tranquility of the forest. "This is my treehouse. I asked Neo to build this for me when I was young. Only 3 people know this place other than me. You are the 4th, Ivana said as she opened the door. The interior of her treehouse was simple with no extravagant features. Every piece of furniture was well organized, giving the treehouse a clean look. The decoration in her treehouse perfectly represented Ivana's personality, simple yet elegant. "The view here is beautiful," Alaric remarked as he looked outside her window. Ivana pointed to a vacant seat and gestured for him to sit down as she asked, "What do you want to tell me?" Alaric didn't sit down. He walked toward Ivana, stopped in front of her, and whispered, "Do you like me?" Ivana jolted in surprise. She didn't expect him to ask her this in such a straightforward manner. "I," she stammered and averted her gaze to hide her blushing cheeks. However, Alaric noticed that her ears were reddening. He leaned forward and moved his face closer to her. "Ivana, you cannot hide it from me." The elven princess panicked when she felt his warm breath blowing into her face. What do you mean? I do not understand why you are saying." She didn't dare look at him in the eye. Alaric smiled at her futile attempt to hide her feelings. He cupped her chin and made her look straight at him. "You have the most beautiful eyes, Ivana." Alaric was mesmerized. Her eyes were so enchanting that it felt like he would be sucked into them the longer he stared at her. The elven princess didn't know how to react when she heard his sweet words. She just stared back at him with a mixture of nervousness, embarrassment, and expectation. Alaric stared at her full lips. At this distance, he could smell her fragrant breath, which reminded him of the scent of flowers after the rain. He no longer held back his desire. He leaned forward and kissed her lips. Ivana's eyes widened. She thought of pulling away, but her body didn't listen to her. She could only close her eyes and allow Alaric to take advantage of her. Alaric noticed that she had given up on resisting. He skillfully pried open her mouth using his tongue. She seemed to have realized his intentions, but instead of resisting, she opened her mouth and let him explore his way through. Ivana trembled at the sudden stimulation. She felt like she was slowly losing control of her mind and body. The mood became even more intimate the longer they shared this passionate moment. Unknowingly, the two drowned deeper into the sensual atmosphere. Ivana didn't know when it happened, but she realized that she was already sitting on top of Alaric with her arms tightly hugging his neck. Furthermore, Alaric's shirt had already fallen to the floor, exposing his well-built body. She tried to get up, but Alaric subconsciously grabbed her back and pulled her closer to him. "What is this? I feel something rubbing against me down there. Could it be?" Ivana panicked when she realized what was happening. "Wait, Alaric!" She pushed his chest to break free from his tight embrace. Her voice pulled him from the dreamy illusion, and when he regained his senses, he was shocked about what he had done. Ivana's white hair was disheveled and her clothes were no longer in the right place. He could even see a hint of pink, peeking out invitingly. A certain place became harder at the tempting sight. Ivana also felt it poking at her, which made her blush even harder. This guy took advantage of her, and he had even seen something that he shouldn't have. "Alaric," she muttered in a cold voice. Alaric could sense the anger and embarrassment in her voice, so he quickly explained himself. "I did not intentionally look at." "All right, it was intentional. I could not stop myself after seeing your lips." Things had already happened, so Alaric didn't bother to explain and just told her the truth. Ivana was stumped, and the words that she was about to say were stuck in her throat. Her anger also subsided when she saw his sincere face. "Can you release me first? Your thing. It's poking me out down there," Ivana whispered in embarrassment. Hearing this, Alaric immediately let go of her and looked at her with an apologetic smile. Seeing his expression, Ivana snorted, stood up, and adjusted her clothes. She couldn't help but take a glimpse of the bulge on his pants, but then she noticed that he was sending her a strange smile, so she quickly looked away. "I just happened to see it." She tried to explain herself, but she stopped midway when she heard him chuckling. Sure, it was not intentional." Alaric teased her as he grabbed his shirt. Ivana turned around and walked toward the window. "What are we now?" she asked, her voice echoing with confusion. Alaric felt a pang of guilt when he saw her vulnerability. He hardened his resolve and put on a determined face. He then stood up and walked slowly toward her. Alaric grabbed her slim waist and pulled her gently into his embrace. "From now on, you are my woman," he said in a domineering tone. Ivana felt a mixture of joy and excitement, but she didn't show it to her face. So this is what it feels like to be in love. What a wonderful feeling, she thought as she turned around and looked up at him. Can we do it again?" Alaric whispered teasingly. Ivana stomped on his foot and pinched his waist as she muttered, "I will follow you to North Pinetown and tell that lady named Hershey about what happened here." Her words made Alaric retract his evil hands, but then he suddenly grabbed her waist and pulled her even closer to him. "Do you think I am afraid?" This time it was her turn to panic. She yelped and tried to escape from his grasp, but she found herself unable to break free. "Alaric!" She nervously looked at him. Sensing her panicking eyes, Alaric released her and patted her head. "You look cute when you are nervous." Meanwhile, while the two of them were exchanging sweet words, Lucas and Garendel were currently discussing the alliance between House Silversword and the Greenwood Kingdom. "You must promise me that you will not trade with any other human households." Lucas didn't want to share this business with someone else. He might not be good with business, but he knew that if they had to share with more people, the lesser their profits would be. Garendel furrowed his eyebrows. This would mean that House Silversword would take full control of their trade. This might not be a problem for the time being, but nothing was certain in the future. After a few minutes of silence, the Elven King replied, "All right, but in the event that we find out that House Silversword is taking advantage of us, we must be free to pull out." Lucas nodded. This was only natural, so he agreed without hesitation. "No problem." Garendel heaved a sigh of relief. He was a bit nervous since Lucas was no longer a transcendent like him, but a mythical knight. Suddenly, he thought about something important. "By the way, is Alaric engaged to someone, or is he married to someone?" He noticed that his daughter was attracted to Alaric, so he wanted to know if there was a chance for them. Lucas was taken aback, but he understood the implications behind this inquiry. He also sensed that his son liked the elven princess. "To tell you the truth, my son is currently engaged to the only daughter of House Paxley. They had already scheduled their marriage, but we might have to move the schedule because of the recent events." Hearing this, Garendel was disappointed. "Is that so? What are you worried about, Your Majesty?" "I do not think there would be an issue if my son marries your daughter." Lucas was open-minded about this since he had grown up in a society where polygamy was seen as normal. Garendel raised an eyebrow at his words. Very rarely would the elves marry more than one partner. Some elves were even averse to this sort of relationship. "If it is Alaric, I do not think it would be a problem. He is a talented young man who is bound to inherit Lucas' legacy, but I cannot make the final decision." He didn't want to intervene in his daughter's marriage. This was something that he had promised to Ivana's mother before her death. I will discuss this with my daughter first." Chapter 215. Ivana's mother, the late Elven Queen. Their discussion ended on a positive note. "Venerable One, are you planning to return soon?" Garendel asked on their way out of the treehouse. Lucas found his new title quite awkward, but he still nodded and replied in a calm tone. "We will return once our injured soldiers are ready to go." "I see. Then I will inform our healers to prioritize the recovery of your warriors." Garendel didn't insist on making them stay. He knew that Lucas still had to take care of his territory. "That would be great. Thank you, Your Majesty." Lucas responded with a look of gratitude. A moment later, they finally stepped out of the treehouse. "This is as far as I can take you, Venerable Lucas. I still need to take care of some things, so I hope you will understand my situation," said Garendel in an apologetic manner. If he could, he would follow Lucas all day and deepen their friendship. However, he was bound to his duties as the king of the Greenwood Kingdom. Lucas waved his hand. "Of course. Let us talk again sometime, Your Majesty. I will take my leave first." He cupped his fists at the Elven King as he bid him farewell. He then turned around and left. Garendel watched him leave with a complex expression. "I wonder what kind of storm he will make once he returns to the Empire." Garendel had visited Estania before during his younger days, so he knew a thing or two about the Empire. I wonder if I have the chance to be a venerable. Garandel was amused by his own ridiculous thoughts. Meanwhile, Alaric and Ivana had already stepped outside the treehouse. They tacitly agreed to go on a walk to prevent themselves from making the same mistake earlier. Ivana, I am curious about something. Do you know who engraved the ability on General Reisel's sword? He had witnessed the sword's power, and he was certain that it was on the same level as his frigid dragon sword. The only difference was that Reisel's sword had a major side effect if repeatedly used, whereas Alaric's sword had no such detrimental effect. Hearing this, Ivana thought of a certain person and replied with an emotional voice. It was my mother. Alaric's eyes widened at her response. I am sorry, I did not know. No wonder I could not find someone with the Berserker monster integrated trait. It turns out that it was Ivana's mother who had engraved the ability on that sword. Ivana shook her head. It is all right. I might as well tell you since we are on the topic. My mother was the strongest elf in the kingdom. She was a 4-ringed beast soul grandmaster. Her main monster integrated trait was Blood Berserker. It was an ability that made her stronger the more blood she absorbed from the enemies she had slain. She told him a few things about her mother, and for the first time Ivana revealed her vulnerable side. She tried not to cry as she told him this story. When Alaric heard that her mother was a 4-ringed beast soul grandmaster, he was stunned. This was an expert who could stand above Astania unfettered and unbound by any law. A 4-ringed beast soul grandmaster was someone who had formed a mana ring around their heart, a special vessel that stores mana. With the help of this vessel, they could wield unimaginable amounts of mana, which also made casting skills easier for them. That was the reason why experts at this level were feared in the Empire. Even a 10,000-man army of skilled warriors would collapse under the terrifying might of a 4-ringed beast soul grandmaster. Your mother was a great queen. Alaric sighed as he patted her back. It was lamentable for such a powerful woman to meet her end in such a tragic manner. According to Ivana, the late Elven Queen had to sacrifice herself to kill 2 catastrophe-grade monsters, all for the sake of their kingdom's survival. 3 catastrophe-grade monsters attacked our kingdom at that time. My mother managed to kill 2 and severely injured the last one, but she was also not spared from death after that battle. A mixture of emotions flashed in Ivana's eyes. Alaric sensed her sorrow, her regret, and her rage. Suddenly, he realized something important. Wait, you mean there is still one catastrophe-grade monster that survived that battle? That is right, but you do not need to worry. Its injuries were so serious that it might not be able to recover in the next century. Ivana replied. Alaric felt a bit relieved to hear that, but he still felt unsettled knowing that such a formidable creature was hidden somewhere in the enchanted woodlands. But you cannot ignore the possibility that it might recover faster than you all had anticipated. Alaric reminded her with a stern voice. Ivana narrowed her eyes and nodded. We have been preparing for that too. The elves had also thought of this possibility, so they had made measures in case the monster would return to exact revenge. But she didn't disclose the information to Alaric, for this was related to the core secrets of the Greenwood Kingdom. It seems I was overthinking it. Alaric shook his head. The two were silent for a while before Ivana spoke. You must come here and see me often. If you don't, I will come and find you. Alaric's mouth twitched upon hearing this. Of course, I will visit you often. I promise. He sent her a reassuring smile. Bring that young lady named Hershey with you the next time you come here. I want to get to know her better. Ivana didn't have friends in her age group since her identity was very special. No one dared to get closer to her because the elves were very strict about hierarchy. The only friend she had was Neo, but he was way older than her, so they don't share the same interests. Alaric wasn't against the idea. He felt that it was only right for them to know each other. All right. Chapter 216, Going Back Home. Days went by in a flash and the time of their departure finally arrived. It was already the 30th of April. They had stayed a few days more than what they had planned because they waited for the injured human warriors to recover. The highest-ranking members of the Elven Kingdom gathered to send them off. It was a grand farewell since even the king had attended. This was to show respect to the human warriors who had traveled long distances to help them overcome a battle they were destined to lose. "Remember your promise, Alaric." Ivana put on a composed look to hide her sadness. "I will not forget my promise." Alaric smiled at her. He bid her farewell one last time before he mounted his horse. At this moment, Lucas' stern voice echoed. "Move out. We are going home." Alaric stared deeply at Ivana's figure before he urged his horse to follow the group. The elves watched them leave with complicated expressions. They never expected that they would actually befriend humans, the very beings they once hated. Garandel waved his hand and commanded, "Have the king's guards follow them in secret, and make sure that no monsters would attack them on their way out of the enchanted woodlands." Since Rizal was still recovering, the deputy commander of the king's guards, a middle-aged elven warrior with long golden hair, temporarily took command. This elf was peak elite knight, a formidable warrior who had experienced numerous battles. In terms of experience, he wasn't that far behind Rizal. "Yes, your majesty." The deputy commander of the king's guards acknowledged his command with a deep bow. He then made a hand gesture and commanded his subordinates, "Let's get going." He then left with 100 veteran elven warriors. After they left, Garandel turned his gaze to his daughter and said, "Ivana, we need to talk." Ivana stared coldly at him and walked away without saying a word. Seeing this, Garandel sighed and shook his head. "It seems like I can only use my secret weapon," he thought to himself as he cleared his throat and spoke. "This is related to your marriage." Just as he had expected, Ivana stopped and turned around, her face turning frosty. "Do you plan to intervene with my marriage?" Garandel approached her and replied, "I talked with Venerable Lucas and he asked me if you were willing to marry his son, Alaric. I didn't give him a response yet. What do you think? Let us talk somewhere more quiet." Ivana's voice softened. Hearing this, Garandel's lips curved upward. "Let us talk in your treehouse. I have not been there for a while." Ivana hesitated, but she eventually nodded her head. "Fine." Lucas sensed that there were elven warriors following them, but he ignored them. Garandel is really thoughtful. We do not even need to keep watch at night with all the elven warriors he sent. Suddenly, Warwick approached him on horseback and reported, "My lord, the elves are tailing us. Just let them be. They do not have ill intentions, so just act like you did not notice them." Lucas responded indifferently. Warwick nodded at his words. "All right, I will go and inform our warriors." After he left, Lucas turned his head to his son and beckoned to him. Seeing his signal, Alaric urged his horse to move toward him. "My lord, what are your orders?" "Relax." Lucas smiled at him. "Once we return, we must set a new date for your marriage with Hershey. We cannot let House Paxley wait for too long. Baron Nathan might be starting to get anxious by now." He added, "Yes, my lord. I will bring gifts for them, and I will also apologize for the delay and the confusion." Alaric nodded in agreement. "Good." Lucas was satisfied with his response. "I have already sent a messenger bird to inform your mother about this. Once she gets the message, she will begin with the preparations." Thinking about Maria, Lucas felt a wave of guilt. She had been faithful to him, and she had never complained or rushed him about giving her a child. While he was immersed in his thoughts, Alaric's response drifted into his ears. "All right, that is good to know." Lucas hesitated for a moment before he asked, "Son, what do you think about having a younger sibling?" Alaric thought that he had misheard it, but when he saw his father's face, he realized that he was serious about this. "That has been one of my greatest wishes. You do not need to ask me about this, my lord. You must do it," he eagerly replied. Just the thought of carrying a baby sibling filled him with excitement. Lucas chuckled upon hearing his words. Now that he had become a mythical knight, the worries he had carried for years disappeared like smoke. Alaric looked at his father, and he couldn't help but feel curious about his stats. He hadn't used his appraisal on Lucas, not even once. "Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target?" "Yes." "No." Alaric clicked, "Yes." "Error. The target's power is immeasurable. What? It actually failed. Alaric widened his eyes in shock. This had never happened before. He thought that his appraisal trait would allow him to see Lucas' stats, but it seemed like there was a problem. I see. My appraisal trait has a limit. I can appraise someone who is a realm higher than me, but I cannot appraise someone who is 2 realms above me. This was the most logical explanation he could think of. Too bad. If I had known, I would have used appraisal on Dad before he had advanced to the realm of Mythical Knight. He felt a bit regretful at the missed opportunity. What are you spacing out there for? Lucas' voice suddenly drifted into his ears, pulling him from his thoughts. Alaric forced a smile and shook his head. It is nothing, my lord. I am just excited to go back home. Lucas stared deeply at him. Earlier, he sensed a peculiar feeling of being watched. He suspected that it was Alaric because he felt the unusual fluctuations of his mana. Chapter 217. Assassination Attempt on Hershey? On the 2nd day of May, they arrived at Turtle Fort. The group had already decided to get some rest. But then they saw the fort's commander, Rommel, rushing toward them on his horseback. He looked anxious as he approached them. Sir Rommel, what happened? Why are you in such a hurry? Lucas raised an eyebrow. The old man didn't even bother to wipe off the sweat on his face. He cupped his fists and reported. My lord, something happened in your estate while you were away. Both Lucas and Alaric were stunned when they heard this. The fort commander took a deep breath and said in a serious voice, Lady Hershey was attacked by a group of assassins. What did you say? Killing intent flashed in Alaric's eyes. He was trembling with fury, and he could barely hold back his overflowing anger. Someone actually touched his woman. Unforgivable. Rommel felt a chill upon seeing his cold expression. He didn't expect a young warrior to release such overwhelming killing intent. The young lady is unharmed, Rommel quickly explained. I heard that Sir Henry and the others were able to capture the assassins. Alaric and Lucas were relieved to hear this. It was a good decision to let them stay in the estate. Alaric thought to himself. This hadn't happened in his past life, so it was outside his expectations. Father, we must return as soon as possible, said Alaric as he glanced at Lucas. Lucas nodded in agreement. He then cupped his fists to Rommel to express his gratitude for relaying the information. Thank you, Sir Rommel. I will catch up with you next time. Rommel nodded with a wave of his hand. Please don't worry about that, my lord. Your matters are more important. We will take our leave first. Lucas bid him farewell and brought the group out of the fort. My lord, we would like to follow you to North Pine Town. How dare those people attack Lord Alaric's fiancée? Baron Smith Heinrich was furious. As someone who had pledged allegiance to House Silversword, he wanted to show his support. Hearing this, Lucas nodded. All right, let us go. The group didn't take a moment of rest. They rushed to North Pine Town. If their mounts were ordinary horses, they wouldn't have survived the trip. Luckily, they were monsters attuned to mana, so they were more resilient. Traveling long distances was just a simple matter for these creatures. The trip that would have normally taken them 7 days only took them 2 days. By the time they arrived at North Pine Town, the horses were already exhausted, so the group had to travel on foot for the rest of the journey. There were more guards stationed at the main gate, and they were carefully doing a search on every visitor that wished to enter the town. Suddenly, the arrival of Lucas and the others caused a commotion. What's going on out there? A gatekeeper furiously shouted. But when he quickly recognized Lucas and Alaric's faces from the crowd. My lords! The rest of the guards immediately stopped what they were doing when they heard the gatekeeper's exclamation. Lord Lucas and Lord Alaric have returned, someone shouted. Lucas beckoned to the commander of the guards and asked, What is the situation? My lord, Lady Hershey was attacked a week after your departure. Luckily, Sir Henry was with her at the time of the attack, so she was unharmed. The assailants have been caught and they are now locked up in prison, awaiting your judgment. The commander of the guards replied. Lucas tapped his shoulder. All right, you guys continue with your tasks and send someone to get our mounts. Yes, my lord. Lucas and the others rushed to the estate on foot. they encountered more patrolling guards along the way. Some were even warriors from House Paxley. They were probably worried about Hershey's safety, so they sent more warriors to increase the town's defenses. The main gate of the estate also had 20 warriors, and an elite knight from House Paxley was even there to supervise them. Upon seeing Lucas' group, the guards were pleasantly surprised. "My lords, we will talk later." Lucas waved his hand impatiently. Seeing that they were in a hurry, the guards didn't dare waste their time. They quickly went to open the gates for them. By the time they arrived at the main mansion, they saw Maria waiting for them. Standing behind her was Arthur and a few more knights. "My lord." Maria felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted off her shoulders the moment she saw them. Due to the recent assassination attempt, she was in a constant state of anxiety. She couldn't eat or sleep well, making her lose a lot of weight. When Lucas saw her emaciated face, his face fell. He felt like his heart was torn to see her in such a terrible condition. Lucas gently embraced her fragile body and whispered, his voice trembling with anger and guilt. "My wife, you lost so much weight. I am sorry for not being here to protect you guys. You do not need to blame yourself, my lord. Besides, Sir Arthur and the other warriors are here to protect us. Nothing happened to us because of their protection." Maria smiled at him. Lucas sent Arthur a grateful look. "Mom, where's Hershey?" Alaric looked around, but he couldn't see Hershey anywhere. "She is resting in her room with Elena," Maria responded. Hearing this, Alaric rushed inside the mansion and headed straight to Hershey's bedroom, which wasn't far from his room. Galliner and Theo followed closely behind him. The latter no longer bothered about etiquette. "I apologize on behalf of my lord. He must be worried about his sister." Jared bowed to Lucas. Lucas waved his hand. "It is all right." Chapter 218. A familiar face among the assassins. Before Alaric even arrived at Hershey's bedroom, he saw her in the hallway with Henry walking behind her. "Alaric! Hershey!" The two rushed to each other's arms. Galliner and Theo stopped at a certain distance to give the couple some space. The latter was relieved to see that his sister was safe. "Are you hurt?" Alaric inspected her body with a worried look. Seeing his concern for her, Hershey smiled. "I am all right. Sir Henry and Cassandra were there when I was attacked." Alaric let out a sigh upon hearing this. He sent Henry a look of gratitude. "Thank you for protecting her, Sir Henry." Henry shook his head and replied, "It is my duty to protect her during your absence, my lord. It is my task as a warrior of House Silversword." Alaric tapped the old man's shoulder. He then turned his gaze back to Hershey and asked, "Where is Cassandra?" The female knight had always stayed next to her, so it was surprising that she wasn't around. Hershey's face fell as she replied, "To protect me, Dame Cassandra was injured. She is now resting in my bedroom." Alaric frowned. "Take me to see her." He had once fought Cassandra in a friendly duel. She was a skilled warrioress and a loyal knight of House Paxley. Hershey also treated her like an elder sister. Their bond was the same as Alaric's brotherhood with Aldrin. Author's note: in case you forgot, Aldrin is one of House Silversword's most powerful knights. Alaric also treats him like an older brother. Hershey nodded and said, "All right, follow me." She took them to her bedroom. "I am back, Cassandra. Someone is here to visit you." Hershey hurried over to the bed where a red-haired woman was lying. It was Cassandra. She had a neck brace and her arms were wrapped in gauze. There was also a sword scar on the right side of her face. "My lord!" Elena, who was looking after Cassandra, was pleasantly surprised to see him. Alaric smiled at Elena and patted her head. "I am glad that you are unharmed, Elena." The girl looked more mature now. In a few more years, she would be a rare beauty. After exchanging a few words with her, he went to Cassandra's side. "How are you, Dame Cassandra?" The warrioress still looked proud despite her condition. With a calm expression, she replied, "According to the doctor, I will make a full recovery in 2 months." "I see. That is good to hear." Alaric was shocked when he was inspecting her injuries. She had already advanced to the realm of elite knights. "How? I am pretty sure that she was still a bit far from advancing to the next realm. Just what happened during my absence? He was curious to know the details, but conversing with Cassandra was quite difficult because of her proud personality, so he could only temporarily put this matter aside. Thank you for protecting Hershey. These were the words that came out of his mouth. The warrioress stared deeply at him. It is my duty to protect my lady. Alaric nodded. Rest well. I will inform the doctors and the nurses to bring you more herbs and tonics to help your recovery. Hershey walked to his side and whispered, I apologize on her behalf. Cassandra does not like to speak with men, and no one is an exception to this. Alaric smiled at her. It's all right. I do not mind her personality. Alaric stayed there for some time before he excused himself. He planned to visit the prison, so he asked Hershey to stay in her room to look after Cassandra. Hershey seemed to have realized this, so she didn't insist on following him. Alaric headed to the prison with Galliner and Theo. By the time they arrived, there was already a small group waiting for them. It was Lucas and a few others who had come to interrogate the prisoners. Jared approached them and asked with concern, How is Lady Hershey doing? Just as Alaric was about to respond, Theo stepped forward and raised his hand to stop him from speaking. You should go, my lord. I will speak with my uncle. Alaric nodded. All right. Hershey is. He walked toward the prison cell where the assassins were held. Arthur was currently speaking with Lucas, and Alaric overheard their conversation. 5 assassins were killed during the attack, and we have captured the rest, including their leader. There were 9 of them, but 3 died during the interrogation. They are tight-lipped, so we didn't get any useful information from them. Arthur reported. Did you find any clues in their possessions? Lucas asked with a frown. From the looks of it, these assassins might be elites who had been trained to withstand any torture. Only big households could train experts like these men. Arthur shook his head. We confiscated everything they had, but we didn't find any clues. The faces of Lucas and the others darkened. Whoever sent these assassins was more thorough than they had thought. Did Hershey recognize any of the assailants? Alaric suddenly asked. Arthur looked at him and shook his head. My lady was deeply traumatized, so we didn't dare ask for her assistance during the interrogation. Alaric nodded. It wasn't their fault, so he didn't blame them. Open the cell. I want to see their faces. Arthur nodded, turned around, and unlocked the prison cell. Without hesitation, Alaric went in. Seeing this, Galliner and the others immediately followed to ensure his safety. Inside the cell were 6 men who were covered in blood. They had been subjected to all sorts of torture, so their bodies were riddled with wounds. There was even one of them who was missing an eye, and his fingernails were also forcefully removed. The wounds they had suffered were enough to make a grown man cry, but these guys were quite tough. None of them begged for mercy when Alaric entered their cell. Why is it him? Alaric was stunned when he saw a familiar face among the assassins. Chapter 219, Austin's Hesitation. Austin! Alaric exclaimed in his heart as he looked at the middle-aged man who had one of his eyes removed. This person was one of the strongest warriors of House Paxley in his past life. He had become a transcendent and was even promoted by Baron Nathan as the deputy commander of House Paxley's armed guards. His authority was only beneath that of Jared Paxley and the Baron. How could it be him? Alaric was baffled, but then a thought suddenly occurred to him. I understand now. It seems like there is one person that I had overlooked. Vivian, Baron Nathan's wife and the stepmother of Hershey. She had the biggest motive to assassinate Hershey. Thinking about this, Alaric looked at the people who had followed him inside the cell and muttered, Everyone, please step out for a moment. I would like to have a word with these people. Hearing this, everyone hesitated, and they couldn't help but turn their heads to Lucas to seek his opinion. Lucas furrowed his eyebrows. He noticed the abrupt change in Alaric's expression the moment he saw one of the assailants. The others might have failed to see it, but this didn't escape his eyes. He nodded to Alaric and gestured for everyone to leave. Let us step out for a moment, everyone. He wasn't worried about his son's safety. Alaric was already an elite knight, a powerful one at that. Even if the assassins managed to break free from their restraints and attack him simultaneously, Alaric could still defend himself. When they heard Lucas' words, everyone retreated and stepped out of the cell. "Will Lord Alaric be all right on his own, my lord?" Baron Smith asked him the moment they stepped out of the cell. Lucas glanced at him and replied indifferently, "You have seen what he is capable of. I do not think those severely wounded men could beat him in a fight. Even if they joined hands, Alaric could end their lives in just a few moves." Everyone could sense his confidence in his son's abilities, but they also agreed with this. They had witnessed Alaric's spectacular dual sword technique. It was a technique that many of them tried to replicate, but no one had succeeded. His skills with the sword were unmatched, and he also possessed impressive combat skills that made him stand shoulder to shoulder with seasoned elite knights. To them, Alaric was not just a talented young warrior, but a great fighter who had proven himself time and again. After they left the cell, Alaric approached the middle-aged man whom he had recognized at a glance. "Austin," Alaric uttered with a cold voice. The middle-aged man made a slight movement at the sudden mention of his name, and Alaric noticed this. How does he know my name?" Austin was stunned. He acted like he didn't know what Alaric was talking about, but he was already panicking inside. "Is there a traitor among us?" Austin used his peripheral vision to look at his companions, but he didn't sense any unusual reaction from them. This only made him even more confused. Vivian had secretly trained them, and only a handful of people knew his identity. Even Vivian's sons didn't know his name, so how did Alaric discover his name? "Austin, let us stop playing with this game. How about doing me a favor? If you confess the truth to the public, I will let you go." Alaric's voice drifted into his ears. This time Austin looked up to him and replied, "I don't know what you are talking about." His voice sounded weird since his face had been disfigured after being beaten up by the interrogators. To his shock, he found out that Alaric wasn't looking at him, but at the person chained next to him. "Got you." Alaric grinned as he abruptly turned his head to Austin. Austin's face became even more unsightly to behold. He had actually fallen into Alaric's trap with just a few words. Knowing that he had been discovered, he knew that pretending was already useless. "If you want me to confess, then you might as well kill me," he sneered. "Is that so? How about this?" Alaric rubbed his chin and said, "If you expose the person who had instructed you, I will let your comrades go." Austin became silent. The people who were caught along with him were his subordinates. They were friends and even brothers to him, so Alaric's words made him hesitate. As if sensing his hesitation, Alaric added, "Austin, those people don't value your lives. All they want is for you guys to complete your missions. To them, you are just disposable tools. If you expose them, you guys can start a new life somewhere far from here. I will even give you some money to start over." "Don't listen to his nonsense, Sir Austin," one of the assassins shouted. Alaric merely smiled as if he was unbothered. He bent over and tapped Austin's shoulder. "Think about it. I will give you half a day to consider it. I hope that you will give me a satisfactory response the next time I come here." Alaric didn't linger after saying those words. He had already planted a seed in Austin's mind. Alaric waved his hand, turned around, and stepped out of the prison cell with steady footsteps. He had already fulfilled his goal. All that was left was for Austin to fall into his trap. "Please allow me to deal with these assassins, my lord. I will give you a satisfactory answer soon." Alaric looked at his father with a calm gaze. Lucas stared deeply at him and nodded. "All right." He had a feeling that Alaric would give him another surprise. "Thank you for your trust. I will not disappoint you, my lord." Alaric cupped his fists and bowed to him. Chapter 220. The Executioner's Mask. Alaric had already left the prison cell, but his words still echoed repeatedly in Austin's mind. What should I do? He felt tempted to disclose everything, but he was afraid that it was just a ploy to make him confess. "Sir, don't fall for Alaric's schemes. This might be a trap," one of the assassins exclaimed, his voice trembling with agitation. Austin lifted his head, but before he could respond, Another assassin voiced out his opinion. What if he is telling the truth? This is a chance for us to start a new life. Didn't you guys always wish for this chance before? The others remained silent as if they were seriously contemplating their decision. After almost 5 minutes of silence, another person said, "Whatever you decide, we will respect your choice, Sir Austin." Austin felt a huge weight pressing on his shoulders. "Thank you for trusting me, everyone. Whatever happens, you guys will always be my brothers." Meanwhile, Alaric headed to his bedchamber alone. He hadn't used one of the items he had gotten from the recent mission, the Elite Knight card. Now that he had some privacy, he felt that it was the perfect time to finally use it. I wonder what kind of warrior I will summon this time. I only got one Elite Knight card before and it summoned Galliner, who is a peak Elite Knight. I just hope that I will summon someone half as good as him. While he was silently praying for a good outcome, he opened the sign screen. "Do you want to use your Elite Knight card?" "Yes." "No." Alaric rubbed his hands before he pressed yes. In the next moment, a bright light flashed in front of him, forcing him to close his eyes. When he opened his eyes, he saw a tall and muscular warrior with a familiar face. Alaric frowned as he tried to remember where he had seen this person. Wait, this guy, isn't this the death row criminal who took the blame for Liam's crime? He had finally realized who it was. It was the man he had fought in the sacred duel. "My lord, my name is Ulrich. I am at your command." The giant kneeled before him to show his allegiance. "Ulrich? Do you know who the butcher is?" Alaric probed. This man was known in Ryvad as the Butcher. It was a moniker that was given to him for the crimes he didn't commit. Ulrich opened his mouth and it looked like he was saying something. However, Alaric didn't hear anything, as if a mysterious power prevented him from discovering something. Alaric narrowed his eyes. He had tried this on Galliner before and the same thing happened. Ulrich was someone who had died. Does this mean that Galliner had also died before? He learned a piece of crucial information about the summoned warriors, but he was yet to determine the truth, since he didn't know if Galliner had truly died before. However, this was a good clue to start with. Alaric stared at the giant and asked, "Ulrich, do you know Liam Paxley?" This time, Ulrich's face darkened as killing intent flashed in his eyes. He almost failed to hold back his rage, but as soon as he calmed down, he opened his mouth. However, no words still came out of his mouth. This is indeed him. He still remembers his past, but he cannot speak about it. Well, it looks like he can, but something is preventing me from hearing it. Alaric's head began to hurt the more he tried to comprehend the situation, so he decided to put the matter aside. I will leave it be for the time being since I do not have enough information. Perhaps one day, I will learn why these people were summoned. People know you, so we must do something about your identity. It will not be good for someone to recognize your face. Wait here. I will get something from the family's treasury. Alaric wouldn't be able to explain himself if Ulrich's identity was exposed. After all, this was someone who had died recently and many from his household knew this man. Alaric stepped out of his room and headed straight to the household treasury to get a certain item. The guards protecting the treasury only asked him a few questions before they allowed him entry. House Silversword had grown wealthier in the past few months. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions, just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.